Hello and welcome to the Tonight Show presidential debate. The next President of Ireland is with me in studio tonight. But it is up to you to decide who that will be. Therefore, the purpose of this debate is so that you can learn more about them, about their beliefs and their values, about where they stand on the big issues that impact you, and about what they would bring to the role if they are successful. We've drawn lots for tonight's seating arrangements and speaking order. And the first thing I'm going to ask the candidates to do is to make a 60-second pitch for your vote. First up, it's the independent candidate, Catherine Connolly.
Tí a chuirde, is cúis bródum seasa fós gór agus vóta a lura gagam sa tábhacán uachtaránachta. I am asking for the privilege of serving you as the 10th President of Ireland and to proudly represent this wonderful country on the national and international stage. As President and working together, we can shape a new united republic where everyone is valued, where diversity is cherished, where sustainable solutions are urgently implemented, and where a home is a fundamental human right. A country where we raise our voice for the peaceful resolution to conflicts and war, drawing on our history of colonisation, of famine, and our lived experience of the successful peace process in the north. Leabhar Del, ifar a héin á lura gagam an lá agus má bhíle buíochas.
Catherine. Next up is the Fine Gael candidate, Heather Humphreys.
Tonight, I am humbly asking you to place your trust in me to become the 10th Uachtarán na hÉireann. I want to bring my life experience to the role of President. I worked for many years as a credit union manager where I got to know people and the challenges they faced. It was a great apprenticeship for public life. I was honoured to serve in Cabinet for over a decade. I led the 1916 commemorations, I supported businesses throughout the pandemic, and I worked hard to ensure children across our country received a hot school meal. I'm a daughter, a mother and a grandmother. All my life, I have seen the quiet strength of women in my own family, in my community, and right across this country. Women have been the ones holding things together. I can't promise perfection, but I will promise honesty, compassion and service. If you place your trust in me, I will work to the best of my ability to make you proud and be a president for all. Gura Maithilgiv.
Freshen. Heather, next up is the Fianna Fáil candidate, Jim Gavin.
Kieran. Over the last 4 decades, I've served my country and its values in many different roles. From working with our most disadvantaged communities to keeping peacekeepers in Africa, I've always worked to serve others. I've built teams which show how much we can achieve when we listen and when we respond and respect each other. There is no problem that we cannot overcome when we work together. At a time of growing division, my commitment to you is that I will be a president for every section of society. A voice for all, determined, active, positive, working every day to show the good in our country and the values that we all share. I look forward to this debate about how the role of the President and how to strengthen the ties that bind us as a country.
Jim, now I'm conscious before we get into things that there has been some news in the last couple of hours tonight with regard to Gaza and a mooted ceasefire certainly been trumpeted by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. We have been here before and mooted is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. There has been no agreement or no comment from Hamas thus far. So this might come to naught if indeed it does lead to a ceasefire, given the devastation and the genocide in Gaza. It would be huge news and a huge development. So we will be talking about this, be assured of it. But Catherine Connolly, if I can start with you in the realm of international affairs, if we'll call it that. You made ways for comments you made in UCD, I think it was, a few days ago, wherein you compared current German government policy to the policy of Germany under the Nazis in the 1930s. Do you stand over those comments?
Well, first of all, I welcome the signs of hope for a peace deal in Palestine and in the Middle East, although I have my doubts about that because I don't think the Palestinian people saw the draft of what's been talked about, but I'd like to have hope. In the context of talking about the military-industrial complex and economies boosting their economy through that. That was the context of my comments. And certainly as a mother, as a TD and as a candidate in this election, I'm extremely worried about the military-industrial complex that's building up, particularly in Europe. Germany just being one of the examples, because they've actually said it very openly that that's what their economy needs, and it's a boost to their economy.
Is it not the case that they say one of the consequences would be a boost, but why they're doing it isn't to boost the economy? They're doing it, they would say, because of Russia. And it's the reason that everyone in Europe is upping defence spending, the threat posed by Russia. That's what they would say. There's
certainly a threat posed by Russia, but in terms of meeting that threat, we should be using diplomatic approaches. We should be trying for peace. We're a neutral country, and we should be using our voice, small as we are, we should be using our voice to push for peace. And, you know, when we look at the military-industrial complex, I can't actually hold the figures anymore of what's going into that. And we see countries reducing their welfare budget. And so choices are being made while poverty rises. We have, I think, approximately 165 million displaced people in the world. And so what I would like to do as president, and to use my voice for peace, I think we've everything to gain by doing that. And we have a voice that has really got recognition way beyond our size. People trust us. We've been sending peacekeepers abroad since 1958 without any break in that record. And I think we should build on that more and more as the world becomes more volatile, more dangerous. I think we couldn't have enough voices for peace.
Do you have concerns then about commitments from the Irish government to increase defence spending here?
You see, we have neglected our defence forces for a very long time. And I think, you know, the defence forces, I think the title is very important. It's not an army, it's defence forces. And we've certainly neglected it. And we've had huge recruitment and retention problems. And in fact, we've had a report telling us that they are...
They might say the same in Germany.
With the defence...
But you know what I mean? Like a sauce for the goose, a sauce for the gander. If it's okay for us, why is it not okay for other countries in Europe?
If just in relation to that, the defence forces have been neglected without a doubt. And I have no difficulty improving the conditions for soldiers and for our defence forces and spending a little more money. But when we have to make choices and we can't house our people, then that's a discussion that we really need to be honest about and open with the people to say, look what we're doing here.
Jim, do you accept that the defence forces have been neglected in this country?
If I can just raise a couple of points there that Catherine has mentioned. You know, she's talking about choice that needs to be made by states such as Germany in Europe in terms of the defence. We need to have an honest conversation here. There's a geopolitical crisis. There's a war ongoing in Ukraine. I passed the Russian embassy today. I saw all the Ukrainian flags flying, the people in that neighbourhood supporting the people of Ukraine. There's a war on the eastern border of Europe. Each country has a choice to make, to defend their democracy, to defend their sovereignty. That is a given right. I'm sure the German government could be spending their money elsewhere in welfare. But what choice do they have? What choice do Estonia have? Latvia have? They need to protect their sovereignty. You know, Catherine mentioned, you know, peacekeeping. We've been peacekeeping roles since 1958. Yes, we have. And if we follow the policy of the triple lock that we have now, that Catherine supports, we won't have any peacekeeping. Peacekeeping there's no peacekeeping mission being approved since 2014. That's 11 years, being vetoed by Russia and other member states. I'm proud of neutrality. I wore the uniform of peacekeeping on behalf of the Defence Forces. I proudly served in Oleg and the Heron. I wore the blue helmet. I wore the flak jacket. Yeah, I've seen the benefits of peacekeeping role and our neutrality and how well that is respected in Africa and the Middle East and other nations.
Even if the triple lock or that issue, that veto, wasn't an issue, if it wasn't happening, the threat of veto, we still might not be able to participate in those peacekeeping missions going forward because of the deterioration in our defence forces, particularly over the last 10 to 15 years. Surely you would have seen that happen, surely as a member of the defence forces. You'd have lots of colleagues and friends who are still members of the defence forces. Surely they talk to you about how it has deteriorated.
Well, certainly, if we follow Catherine's line, we'll have the. I don't.
With respect now, I'm asking you about the deterioration that you would have experienced.
I don't want to be the first president where we have no peacekeeping roles since 1958. In terms of the defence, we've had the Defence Commission, and the Defence Commission have identified certain aspirations, and the government have picked the middle aspiration to invest in the Defence Force, primarily for peacekeeping. We are all very proud of neutrality, and Burnrock na HÉireann speaks about that we're a sovereign, independent, democratic state. And the second thing we need to invest is our ability to protect our seas, our sovereign waters, and the cables that pass through Irish waters on behalf of our.
Would you not accept, Jim, would you not accept that we
neighbours
can't do that at the moment because we've got ships mothballed in Hull-Bolan, and one of the reasons we've got ships mothballed in Hull-Bolan is because the government have neglected for years the Defence Forces?
I'm not here to defend the government. I'm here to support.
So they have neglected.
I'm here to support the Defence Commission in terms of investing in the people that I'm very proud of, and the Irish people are very proud of our Defence Forces. That they have the proper equipment. That when they're overseas in peacekeeping roles, you need to have armoured vehicles, you need to have mine-clearing equipment. We need to invest in our people who are representing us. And I wore that proudly, wore the Irish tricolour on my shoulder in peacekeeping missions. And the government is doing the right thing in this case in terms of the investment.
Better late than never then, Heather, is it? I mean, you stood over that neglect for many years, but at least you've made a commitment now, is that it?
Well, of course, we're very proud of our Defence Forces and what they have achieved, particularly on peacekeeping missions. And our Defence Forces certainly deserve all the support that government can give them. There's no doubt about that, and I want to see them supported. Just in relation to Germany and, we saw on Saturday night there were thousands of drones that were bombarded a city in Ukraine. And if it hadn't been for the defences that Germany had put in there, 4 people were killed, thousands of people would have been killed. So, the aggressor here is Russia, and Europe has to defend itself. We really do. But
we can't defend ourselves. And that's partly as a result of neglect from your government. Do you not accept that? You've got Dutch F-35s shooting down those drones over Polish skies, and meanwhile we've got territorial seas that we can't police or patrol because those ships are mothballed in Hull-Bolan. Yeah, well, there has been increased investment, I'm sure, over the years, and we need more. It's as simple as that. We need more. We live in a changing world. We have to support our defence forces. And when we look at the nature of war, it's changing. There are cyber attacks. There are different types of warfare now. And we certainly need to invest in our defence forces. And they have done us proud. They really have. And we should be very proud of everything that they have achieved. Catherine?
Well, I'm actually listening to Jim, and he hasn't mentioned that America used the veto, so that our UNIFIL forces in the Lebanon have only 1 year left. That's the use of a veto by America. We're a neutral country. We have a triple lock. The Taoiseach said the triple lock was at the core of our neutrality. Just this week, the Taoiseach made a very good speech and talked about the importance of the UN and the UN structures. And so let's look at our neutrality and let's see what that means. It's a proactive policy that has been built on years of speaking out truth to power, whether that's Russia and the invasion of the Ukraine or whether that's America and Israel. And significantly so far, we haven't even talked about the genocide that's ongoing because of Israel and its defence forces and the backing by America, who has used its veto. So we must...
Is that another argument to get rid of the triple lock?
Absolutely.
That it's not just Russia, it's actually the Americans as well.
Actually, the UN needs reform, we all know that. The General Assembly needs to be used a lot more. But the difficulty I have is the one-sided argument that Europe needs to defend itself and therefore we need to build up our military spending as Europe does. We have a particular role as a small country. In my opinion, our best defence is our neutrality. Our best defence is that we build, and we build actually on the legacy of Aiken, Fianna Fáil, who absolutely has a stellar record in the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons.
I do want to move on to, because I do promise.
If we could just come back to the point on UNIFIL. I've got many former colleagues who served in the Lebanon. We're all very sad that the UNIFIL mission will be closed. And yes, it was Russia and Israel and America who forced that.
It was America's veto.
And that's, I mean, for me, that is so sad in terms of the relationships and the great work that Irish soldiers, the women and men of our defence forces have done in Lebanon.
I do want to kind of move on because we are going to come back to Gaza.
We just have to be accurate. No, America used the veto. That's why the UNIFIL forces have to withdraw. Before we move on from this, one final question, a quick question. Catherine, just the Labour Party who are supporting you, the German coalition at the moment is made up of the SPD, who are the Labour Party's sister party in government. It's slightly untenable, is it, to ask Labour Party supporters here to vote for you while you're comparing their colleagues to Nazis? I didn't ever do that. And this is a presidential election and I'm an independent candidate. I made my decision because it was the right decision. I said, I have to stand. I didn't base it on party support, nor on the money I had. Obviously, party support. Want them to support you. Obviously, party support is very, very welcome, and I've made that clear. Of course it is. But as an independent candidate, I'm not a part of any party. But I welcome, and it's momentous and historical that the parties have come together to give a new vision for this country, precisely when we need it. I do want to move on because there's a huge amount to get through tonight. On your way here tonight, actually, you probably would have noticed tricolours, proliferation of tricolours around the country. I wish they were up celebrating kind of Kate O'Connor or boxers or cyclists or rowers or anybody else who've been successful in recent days from a sporting point of view. They're not. There's been a suggestion, Jim, that local authorities remove those tricolours. Yeah. The message therein being that Ireland is full, Ireland is for the Irish. Do you think they should remove them?
I'm very proud of our tricolour. I'm a proud Republican. You know, I believe in our country. I believe in the positive role that President can play. I believe in service to the state and service to the people. And our flag speaks to that. Our flag's about inclusion. The orange of one tradition and the green of another. In the middle is the inclusion and the equality. And that's what it speaks to. So when people put the flag up, that's what they're speaking to, inclusion and equality. So I am very precious. Should we remove them? Having sworn allegiance to the state for 20 years with Defence Force, I'm very precious about how the flag is used. And I'm not for extremes, either to the right or to the left. So people need to be people have a right to put the flag where they want. And as you say, predominantly, we like to use it when we're celebrating. For me, that flag speaks to inclusion. And people have a right to put the flags where they so choose to do so.
OK, so no, don't remove them, leave them up regardless of the message.
People need to be aware of what the symbol means. It means inclusion.
It does to you, but it does to you. But that's what it means to you, with all due respect, Jim. I mean, people are perfectly entitled to fly the tricolour and say, do you know what that means to me? It means that Ireland is full and asylum seekers need not apply. And they're perfectly entitled. Now, we can all agree it's an abhorrent view, but they think it.
It doesn't just mean that to me. That's what the Constitution speaks to, about its inclusion. It's equality. That's what our flag is about, and it's a powerful symbol.
Heather, should we remove them?
Well, our flag is a symbol of unity, and we know that. And as Jim has said, the green and the orange together with the white in the middle, which represents peace. When I was Minister in 2016, during the commemorations, I rolled out an initiative to all the schools in Ireland where a member of the Defence Forces brought a flag to every single school. They explained the meaning of the flag, they explained the importance of the flag, and they also explained why we need to respect our flag. Our flag is a symbol of unity. It should not be used as a symbol of division.
But if it is being used as a symbol of division, should we let it be used?
Well, I think we need to speak to people to let them understand that that is wrong. We do not want a divisive society. And that's what I've been saying as part of my presidential campaign. I want to try and bring unity. Unity in many parts of this country, in communities where there's division, where we need to sit down and have those conversations. We need to speak to people, and we need to break down those preconceived notions, those prejudices that are creeping into our society. So we really need to address that. But for me, our flag is a symbol. So
nobody has explained to these people what the flag means or why they're wrong?
Well, I think that sometimes... Is it not the
case that these people just feel utterly disenfranchised and that the system has failed them and their communities?
Well, unfortunately, the problem is in this country, our flag has been used as a symbol of division and a symbol and that's where we need to move away from it. And I don't believe that people should use the flag as a symbol of division. I believe that is wrong, and I see it as a symbol of unity. It's about bringing people together, and it's about having those conversations.
Catherine, do you accept that some of those people who put those flags up, that there are cohorts of people that they might represent in society who actually feel they're not represented, not only by the political establishment, but even by the three of you here tonight, that they would look at you and say, this is indicative of the problem in Ireland. We are not represented, us and our concerns in our communities.
Well, first of all, I think they're a small group of people that are extraordinarily loud and vocal. I think that's the first thing. And I think it does not reflect people in general in Ireland who are very welcoming. I think we have to find a way to deal with this issue in a way that tries to acknowledge what's happening. So the language of division and the language of saying the country is full is just abhorrent. It's abhorrent to everything I stand for. However, a vacuum has arisen to a certain extent in Irish society in terms of a severe housing crisis, and in terms of other difficulties that we have. And that vacuum has allowed for certain voices to be raised very loudly. Are they right? Absolutely not. How did it happen? It happened through a vacuum, I think, and difficulties building up over time. And I think as a presidential candidate, I'm fully aware of that. And we need to have a discourse about what's happening in terms of the flag and symbols. And that's part of leadership. We need leadership in the country, whether that's from the presidential candidates, whether that's from the government. Just lately in Galway, there was a celebration of the Independence Day. And I would have liked if all the politicians were out standing in solidarity with that particular community on that day, because they certainly felt under threat.
What Independence Day?
In India. The Indian group. And they were meeting. It could have been any group, but it happened to be in India Independence Day. And they were celebrating that day as they do every year. And they felt they had to move to a safer ground.
The flags in your mind and the proliferation of them is just another manifestation of the housing crisis?
No, I didn't say that. But a vacuum has arisen that allows this particular group to turn their anger in the wrong way and on the wrong people, and the use of the symbol in the wrong manner. And I think we should be aware of that. And I'm using that Independence Day celebration in Galway, where it was an opportunity for politicians to stand and say, this community should not feel threatened, and stand with them in solidarity. It was a golden opportunity, and it didn't happen. So that's where we need to show leadership locally, in the government, and as a presidential candidate.
Heather, you're in government. I mean, have you allowed a vacuum to be created that's been filled by these voices, this loud minority, as Catherine calls them?
Yeah, well, I'm not in government now.
I was in government recently.
Yeah, but I think it's important. The role of the president is to speak for everybody. The role of the president is to enable those conversations. And I feel that as president, you will be able to bring people together. And when you talk to people and when you dispel those myths that gather, and there are so many people who have the wrong idea and they have been misinformed, and there's prejudices out there. It's important that the president has a role to bring people together, to break down those barriers and have that conversation, because at the end of the day, and Catherine has spoken about the Indian community, they contribute hugely to our society, whether it's doctors, whether it's nurses, whether it's carers. And I think it's important that we have those conversations. And I feel that the president has a role there in bringing people together in the safety of the auras, to have those private conversations.
And look, so
I think we can
conversation is the way through it. I mean, I have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, it does sound a little like, you're suggesting that all we need to do is explain to these people how they're wrong.
No, I don't. I'm not saying that, but that's the start. There's a lot of work to do. We know from other things that have happened in our country that you need to have those conversations as a starting point. And of course, there are other issues as well. There are issues that people are
disaffection and disenfranchise within these communities. You'll find. I mean, that's a common feature you'll find in a lot of these communities that have these flags up. They're not the salubrious, leafy South Dublin suburbs, for example. They're areas that suffer social deprivation, areas that feel that they're not catered for, that they're not looked after by the political establishment, that have been failed by successive governments.
Yes, well, when I was Minister in the Department of Rural and Community Development, we had the SICAP programme. That's a social inclusion programme to help bring people together. And I've been to many meetings where you had members from different nationalities. You know, they were able to have conversations, and they have to understand the norms of our society as well. And we have to try and integrate them, and we have to try and bring that forward. And all of the work that's done on the ground is invaluable. So it's about supporting the local development companies. It's about supporting these agencies to bring about an understanding, because we must have an understanding.
Jim, has the number of people coming to the country to claim asylum in the last 3 years post-COVID been unsustainably high?
It has, and it's reducing. And I think, you know, as president, you know, I've said before in my opening remarks that there is division in this country. And as president, you know, I will work with the communities, listening to them and listening to their concerns. You know, I've been the chair of an initiative, a task force in the northeast inner city, bringing government agencies, bringing services, listening to the community to build a better life for them and to let them live the best version of themselves. In terms of immigration, they're an essential part of people who come into our country, essential part of our economy. We only need to look at our hospitals, our nursing homes, and once people have a permit and a visa, they are entitled to be in the country, or if they're fleeing persecution. We have always been welcoming to those people.
Yeah.
But what we do need is to have a robust but fair immigration system that works.
And that includes paying families 10 grand to turn around and go home?
And if people are not entitled to be in the country, that they're asked to leave.
Heather, €10,000 to families to go home. Would you support that?
Yeah, well, look, it's about processing the application. There are some people who should, you know, they're here because of they're being persecuted in their countries. But it's about the speed at which it can be processed.
Okay. €10,000 to go home. I think it's sound policy.
Well, the direct provision was brought in 2000 as a temporary measure.
Yeah.
It's still there a quarter of a century. And we talk about these people who come to direct and are placed in direct provision are asylum seekers fleeing war and persecution. Yeah. And there's a conflating
But some of them are.
There's a conflating of different issues.
But I'm not being facetious. Some of them are. Some of them will have their claims rejected, which would,
some of
by
them,
implication, mean
we're
they're
talking
not.
about human beings, and we're talking about a conflation of issues. Absolutely, we should have an efficient system to process applications. But successive governments, of which I'm afraid the two, certainly Heather was a member of the government, have utterly failed to stop direct provision. And again, they kept asylum seekers isolated, left it up to communities to reconnect with them and so on.
Yeah.
But we have...
They did have a policy to abolish it, I think.
We had a Catherine Day report, we had a Green or White Paper report.
War in Ukraine
we had
paid to
the
that.
Mappin report.
We are going to have to take a very short break. Our presidential debate will continue in just a few minutes. Stay with us. You're welcome back to our Tonight Show presidential debate. Catherine Connolly, Heather Humphreys and Jim Gavin are all here with me. Heather, lots of buzz around the capital city over the weekend with the NFL's presence, but we're left with headlines about this player who was injured in some incident in Temple Bar. The details of it still a little bit sketchy. And it's just another attack on a tourist, it looks like, in the capital city. And it begs the question, I mean, if some man mountain from the NFL is unsafe in Dublin city centre, is anybody safe at night in Dublin city centre? Yes,
well, it's very concerning what has happened. It's terrible. It's terrible for that person, for that man that was attacked. And it's wrong. And it shouldn't be happening. You know, we need to have our streets safe. tourists coming here need to know that it's safe to come to this country.
Are they safe?
There have been incidents, obviously, where people have been attacked, and that is wrong. It's wrong, I know that we have guards on the street, but obviously we need more guards on the street, and that's the reality of the situation. And it's terrible to think that somebody comes to this country, they visit this country, and they find they're attacked, and it's not a good message.
But is there not an overlap with the last discussion we were having about investment in the Defence Forces? This is a deterioration that's happened on your watch in government. I mean, we've all this private wealth and public squalor, it looks like, in this country.
Well, I think it's important if you're talking about the record in government, and I know I was in government for 14 years. When I was elected in 2011, there were 500,000 people unemployed. The country's finances was
but we're a long way since 2011 now, in fairness. We are a long way since 2011. We've had years and years of growth, record growth over the last few years. And we were talking about recruitment and retention crisis in the Defence Forces, a similar one in An Garda Síochána.
Yeah, well, of course, we have made a lot of progress since then, and people made a lot of sacrifices, and things have turned around. We're now one of the fastest growing economies. We're at full employment. So there's a lot of good things happening in this country. But of course, there's always going to be pressure on resources, and I'm aware of that. But I want to see more investment, obviously, in our Defence Forces. The President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Defence Forces.
First of all, let me put it this way. Do you accept that there's a perception out there that walking the city streets at night is now unsafe in Ireland?
Well, there's been a lot. There's a lot more Gardaí on the street than there were, and I'm sorry that if people feel unsafe, that's not good. And if they feel unsafe, we have to address that problem.
Do you accept that reality?
Yeah, well, I accept the reality that some people don't feel safe. Yes, I do. Absolutely.
And do you accept that that is an indictment on government policy?
Well, I know that efforts have been made to increase the number of Gardaí, and it's the problem in this country, I suppose. It's very hard to get staff, regardless of where they are, whether it's in Gardaí, whether it's people to work in many different areas, and that's why we have so many people coming into this country. And I'm glad too to see that there are many people from other communities and other nationalities have actually joined the Gardaí. I was out and about, and I met a young lad I think he was from Ukraine, and he was now a member of the Garda Síochána, a very proud member. So we need to make sure that we recruit enough people.
Jim, when was the last time you walked down O'Connell Street at night?
I'd say prior to my presidential campaign, I'd say about,
and would you have felt safe?
And the reason I was in O'Connell Street is because of my work in Dublin's north-east inner city. I'm very familiar with it.
So you've seen the coalface government failure.
The concerns of the local people who want more members of Garda Síochána on the ground. On the task force that I chair independently...
Heather just said there's loads more on the ground.
Independently, that we have the...
But Jim, Heather just said there's loads more Gardaí on the ground.
Storage Street on the committee. The Chief Super can only do as...
I'm going to keep saying it. Jim, Heather just said there are more Gardaí on the ground.
There are more, but there's not enough. And I think what the President of Ireland can do is keep highlighting these issues, keep close contact with communities, the most vulnerable in our society. And the reason I'm familiar with O'Connell Street is because quite often I go up to Mountjoy Square, I meet people who are homeless, I meet the local people, and I walk back through town, through O'Connell Street. So I'm very familiar with it. Is it safe? It could be a lot safer.
Catherine, there is a view among some of the business groups that represent employers in the city centre that part of the problem is not just a lack of Gardaí in the street, but that the criminal justice system is too soft on offenders. They talk about a revolving door system, and they've called in recent weeks, one particular group, for more use of antisocial behaviour orders, these ASBOs and curfews maybe on certain people in certain parts of the city late at night, repeat offenders. What would you say to those calls?
I certainly wouldn't go down that route. And I walk everywhere in Dublin. I get a bus up from Galway every week on a Monday, and I go back on a Thursday. When we were in the convention centre, I walked from the convention centre up to the top of Grafton Street. And during that period of time, I saw a complete lack of Garda presence on the ground. It has certainly improved, but it was building up over a number of years. And there were young lads that were really a little bit out of control, and it was building up, and I watched it, and I actually stopped a Garda car one night to ask them to stop what was happening. I could see it building up and building up. I sat on a joint policing committee for quite some time of my life, and the biggest request was more community guards on the ground. So obviously we haven't enough community guards. Part of it might be retention and recruitment, but the other part was a complete lack of understanding by the powers that be for the need for community guards on the ground, walking around and a presence, or on bicycles where we can engage with them and feel safer. That has never happened.
Yeah.
It is always
but
a
you're not
reaction.
except you also have to deal with, as well as the causes of crime, the symptoms of it. And that's where these call for ASBOs or curfews or exclusion zones.
Absolutely, but we've never dealt with the causes of crime ever, and our prisons are over capacity, and we haven't enough prisons, and we've never...
Should we build another?
We've never gone the route that we should have. Actually, I was in the inner city canvassing myself
Should we build
in an
another
area,
prison?
and there was a fantastic project called the Diamond Project, where young people were diverted from the path.
Yeah. Should we build another prison?
I don't think prisons are the answer, more and more prisons. Obviously, we can't have people in prisons
We
that
said
are
the same
over...
amount of prisons as we had when the population was 3.5 million.
We have never learned that we need to find a different way.
Okay.
Quite clearly, prisons have to be to keep people who are not safe to let out, but they are not the solution to other types of crime.
Jim, curfews?
Just to come back to the northeast inner city.
Yeah, but would you like to see curfews imposed on some people?
Just on this particular issue, because I'm very close to it.
I know.
It's a great part of Dublin. We have great people. We need to remember when you're walking, say, off Connolly Station going to go to Croke Park, you're walking through kids, that's their playground.
Yeah.
That's where they live. I've been involved in many projects with the northeast inner city in terms of helping people, helping the kids, the youth services, and that's the focus that a president can do.
Yeah.
It can go into the communities, and not just in Dublin, in Limerick, in Cork, and other areas, and that's the positive power that a president
nobody's
plays.
suggesting that the majority of people are lawbreakers, but lawbreakers exist. And do you agree with those business communities that we should take a stricter or harsher approach to them, to those lawbreakers, recidivist offenders?
Yes, and I was on the Talbot Street Task Force.
We don't want to hear about more task force and things you're on.
I'm working with community leaders, and I do, absolutely. We need to take a hard stand against any criminality. But we also need to work with the young people.
We need to resource those centres.
And give the young people the opportunity to have outlets where they can play, where they can socialise in a safe environment.
These centres are all struggling for resources. I've visited many of them. They're doing tremendous work on the ground, and they're absolutely struggling for resources. So that's where the effort needs to go in, and also into community policing.
Heather, because of the NFL and because of this attack, we've been talking in the context of the capital. I mean, there's people all over the country who feel this is true of their own city or town centre late at night. Do you agree with calls for harsher punishment?
Yeah, well, I feel that if people are breaking the law, they should be punished. And do
you think the fact that the prisons are at capacity makes that difficult? That people go in one door and out the other?
Well, you hear stories about that, certainly. But really, if people break the law, there has to be consequences. But I do think that we need to deal with some of the root causes, and that is obviously drug addiction is a huge problem in our society. And I think we need to have more centres. And there has been a lot of investment in communities, in community halls, in sports facilities. I have been around the country, I've seen that, and it does make a difference. And particularly supporting our GAA clubs, because they're the ones that get the young people off the street. Yeah. They're the ones that get them involved in sport.
Do you know who plays a really central role in intercepting the flow of drugs into the country? The naval service. Yeah. But again, all those boats are mothballed in Hull Bowling. Jim, on the NFL as well, you know, there's a lot of pageantry around at the weekend, and the state were central to it. They ponied up 10 million quid for it, and there's been tourist campaigns wrapped up in it as well. But one of your former wards, Michael Dara Macaulay, was talking about it. He says, nobody does pomp and ceremony like the Americans, but nobody does killing and colonialism like them either. The NFL is inextricably linked with the American military, with the arming of Israel and the genocide in Gaza. Is he right?
Well, first I'll say that I am an NFL supporter from a very young age, 12 years of age. I used to listen to long-wave frequency radio and follow many, many teams as a sports fan as a kid. Michael Dara and Philly McMahon and the other Dublin players, I'm very proud of how they advocate for different things in society, predominantly with Michael Doherty's disadvantage. He's done phenomenal work for those marginalised in Dublin.
Is he right in this case?
In terms of how the GA use their facilities, particularly in the closed season, it doesn't matter for what we call our quarter or central council.
No,
it's a matter for the members.
The issue wasn't the use of Croke Park. The issue wasn't the use of Croke Park. The issue was the inextricable link between the NFL and the American military, the military-industrial complex.
So we look at the NFL, we look at what Dan Rooney, what the Rooney family did last week. They gave €200,000 to two schools in Newry. There's a huge link between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Irish and the Irish.
Jim, if you're a fan of the NFL, you know as well as I do, he's absolutely right. They're inextricably linked with the military. You've got military flyovers, you've got soldiers at every single game.
In every sport, and you've probably been to the States, in every sport, American sport, there is a link between their services, both their National Guard or their military. That's the reality of their life. Thankfully, we didn't see any fly past from US military aircraft at the NFL. Think about what it brings into the economy. I was down canvassing in Killarney earlier on the week, and I met a couple from Minnesota who had travelled the previous week, flew into Shannon, went up to Donegal and worked all the way down to the Ring of Kerry, and they were travelling to Dublin the following day on the Saturday. And from the GA perspective, which is the largest volunteer community-based sporting organisation, for every euro they raised from that game, 83 cents went back into the
Catherine, were you uneasy seeing the NFL parading around Dublin the same weekend that Barack Obama was given the freedom of Dublin City?
I certainly had concerns, but I think we have to begin to question the military-industrial complex and its connections with everything. We have no choice but to do that. And I go back to what's happening in Gaza. We have lost count of how many people that are dead, men, women and children. We refer to them on the RT News. Dozens have died. This is the type of language we're using with a genocide unfolding before our eyes. And we have a duty to ask questions. Who's connected to what? Who's backing up this? How is this happening under our watch? And we can only do that if we take off the blinkers and recognise what's happening. And if we accept genocide as it's unfolding in Palestine, what are the consequences, not just for Palestine, but for humanity? Where do we go next?
Who has the blinkers on?
I think there are blinkers on in the way that we discuss. When this debate started, we talked about the Ukraine. I'm on record for absolutely condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But as a neutral country, we need to, what is happening throughout the world, how do we use our voice as a neutral country in a proactive way to call out truth to power? And so we have Israel acting out of control. Absolutely acting out of control.
The government have said this. The government keeps saying this.
There's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to act. And we have an occupied territories bill that has gone nowhere since 2018. Yeah. We're trading. Europe is trading with Israel.
Heather, we do talk a good game. Yeah. I mean, the occupied territories bill has gone nowhere, and as we speak, shipments of weapons, for all we know, landing in Shannon, taking off again, and then being used to blow Palestinians to smithereens. Yeah. We've done nothing about either of them.
Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge what the Irish government has done. I was part of a government that recognised the state of Palestine. That was 18 months ago, when 30,000 people that had been killed in Gaza. We're now looking at a situation where there's over 60,000 has been killed. What is happening in Gaza is wrong. It is genocide. And what we need to see is a ceasefire. We need to see aid let in. It's a man-made famine. And finally, we need to the hostages have to be released. It's very simple. That's what has to happen. And in fairness to the Irish government, they have stepped up to the plate, and they have.
In what way?
Well, they recognise Palestine, and the occupied territories bill is obviously going through the houses of the Oireachtas at the minute, and
painfully slowly. Yeah, I mean, the dogs in the street know what's going on there. We're just hoping that there'll be some sort of resolution before we have to pass it.
Well, in fairness, is it going to make any difference in terms of what's happening in Israel in Gaza at the minute? No. I'm not saying that.
Well, it sounds a little like you were about to say that.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that it's a very important bill. It's making its way through the houses of the Oireachtas, but the point I'm making is it's also more important that we continue to speak out and say what is happening in Gaza is wrong and it should not be happening, and we need a ceasefire. And I welcome this evening. I hope this isn't just another statement. I hope it actually leads to something, because we all see what's happening there. We see the terrible murder, the mayhem, the children being murdered, the children being carried by their parents, lifeless little bodies being buried, and it's just awful, and we want to see an end to it.
We're trading with the country that's allowing that to happen. Jim has talked about the military targets being met and that Israel should now stop. When did the military target? When was the military target?
That's an unfair comment, Kieran, if I may
when
interject.
was the military target achieved?
What's happening in Gaza every day? The Israeli government are committing war crimes every single day. There's genocide. We've talked here about the bloodlust. It's horrific. The fighting need to stop. Hamas need to hand over the hostages.
Jim, you said the military...
We need to get aid in there immediately. So what can the President of Ireland do, who's non-political, non-partisan? A President can be in solidarity with the Irish people. I'm proud to see the Palestinian flags being flown throughout the country in solidarity with the Palestinian people, along with the Ukrainian people. The President of Ireland can keep a light, keep highlighting these horrific issues that are happening internationally.
What did Catherine say was wrong?
At what point, sorry?
What did Catherine say that was wrong, that you took huge umbrage with?
She was inferring that I was...
You talked about the military objectives having been met. You did say that.
What I said was that over those 2 years, it's horrific that these things have happened in the first instance, and that the Israeli government are committing war crimes. What we want to see, and there's moves obviously tonight between the US administration and the Israelis, will we get anywhere? What we need to protect is that Palestine have their own state. The Palestinian Authority, to finish this point off, is that the Palestinian Authority have been very clear that Hamas will not be part of that new Palestine.
At what point did Israel achieve its military objectives? When 20,000 were dead, when 30,000 were dead? You made the comment. So at what point, in your opinion, was the military objective reached?
If I can come back there, my point was if they were. It's horrific that it happened in the first instance, even more so that we're closing down UNIFIL to protect the people of Lebanon. I fear for them what might happen if UNIFIL was closed down, which it is supposed to in 24 months' time.
Heather, would passing the Occupied Territories Bill be worth it if it choked the golden goose, the FDI goose? We see this anti-BDS legislation in the United States, and there's talk there of financial blowback to Ireland. So you suggest there might be no material benefit for people in Palestine if we pass that bill. Is it worth passing if there's a material cost to Ireland, the Irish Exchequer and Irish jobs?
Well, the bill is currently making its way through the houses of the Oireachtas, and I think it's important to say that the role of the President, regardless of what I think about the bill, and I support the bill, but regardless of what I think of it, if I was fortunate enough to be the President of this country, I would have to sign that legislation.
Yeah, you would, but I didn't ask if you'd sign it. I asked, do you think it is worth the houses of the Oireachtas passing that legislation if there's a material consequence, a negative consequence for Ireland financially?
Well, I think it's still right to stand up for the people in Palestine and in Gaza.
Yes.
And I think
take the risk.
Well, I really do think that we do need to stand up for them at this stage, and it's important that we recognise. And it is a statement saying that we are in solidarity with them.
Catherine, everybody will hope that, despite their views on Trump, that this will materialise in a ceasefire, this announcement tonight. I suspect he thinks he'll be in line for the Nobel Peace Prize if it does. Do you think he should get it?
I hope this peace in Palestine. I doubt it, really, but I hope. I want to hope, and we need to stop the genocide, and we need to allow the Palestinian people decide what type of country they want and what kind of
Does Trump deserve any credit for having brokered it, if it does turn out to be true?
Certainly, Trump has spoken the language of peace for quite some time, and one would have to welcome that and be gracious about that. Hasn't quite worked out yet, really, has it? And in the meantime, we get a parallel type of commentary from him that is going to turn it into a Riviera. However, the big problem for me is that whatever he's saying about peace, he's enabling and financing and giving arms to continue the genocide. So it's in this troubled world of Putin and Trump, what should we do as a small nation? How do we build on our experience and our history to be a voice for peace? That's really what I would like to develop.
Okay.
And certainly as a president, I would like to use my voice for peace. That's what we're obliged to do under our constitution.
Jim, a Nobel Peace Prize for Trump?
There's a long way to go here in this yet. We've only got two states talking to each other, the Israelis, the US. Palestinians need to get involved in this, the Palestinian Authority. Let's see what happens.
Well, Hamas need to get involved in it. Hamas are the other negotiating party.
The Palestinian Authority were very clear last week that Hamas will have no part, no shape or form in the new Palestinian state. The Irish government, along with our European partners and Britain, have said that we recognise Palestine and we need a two-state solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
Heather, is there any role for Hamas, given they are at the negotiating table when it comes to any peace deal? Is there any role for them in a future Palestine?
It's hard to see how you have to talk to people, but I don't know.
But who are we to say that they can't be part of it?
No, I'm not saying they can't be part of it. But
Jim is saying they shouldn't be,
it's going to be very difficult because they are a prescribed terrorist organisation, and they have the EU have identified them as that, you have to give up the arms. You have to stop the fighting, and we've seen this before. We know all about it. We know what happened in Northern Ireland, and it's not until that the fighting stops and there's a commitment to peace that we ever get anywhere.
We're going to have to leave it there. We will have more on this as our presidential debate continues here next. Stay with us. You're welcome back to our Tonight Show presidential debate. Catherine Connolly, Heather Humphreys and Jim Gavin are all here with me. Heather, the man you would hope to replace as president, Michael D. Higgins, has said housing in this country is not so much a crisis as a disaster. Do you agree?
Well, it's a disaster for the people that can't get houses. And, they're putting their lives on hold and they're putting off making decisions because they can't get a house. I know that a lot of effort and a lot of money has gone in to build or to try to solve this problem. And the bottom line is we need to see results, and we need to see more houses being built. And this needs to happen. It needs to happen it needs to happen now. So that's my view on it. And I think we need to see. In fact, no, I'm sure we need to see more houses for young people.
Why do you think now, maybe on reflection, the government that you were part of failed so miserably then to do those things?
Well, the government that I was part of did achieve many things.
Not on housing.
They did achieve many things, and now we have a fast-growing economy, we have full employment. But what we do, I have to accept that we didn't achieve all that we should have achieved in housing. I agree with you.
What did you achieve in housing?
Yeah, well, there has been an increase in the number of houses that were built over the years, but it's a complex.
Targets.
Yeah, it's a complex problem. And I have been in government with members of the Labour Party, members of Fianna Fáil, members of the Green Party, and independents. And every minister for housing, in fairness, they did their best. They really, really tried. But we just did not achieve what we needed to achieve. So I accept that. But what I want to see is the billions that's been spent on housing. We need to see more houses.
So the record, Jim, of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens and Labour and everybody else in government come back to 2016. I think 2016 is when we first used the phrase housing crisis in this country. Record homelessness levels, record house prices, record rent prices, record social housing lists and miss housing targets. We're going to miss our housing targets next year and the year after. And in fact, we are, according to all the oversight bodies, independent oversight bodies, we're not going to hit the 2030 targets in housing for all. So all of those people for whom this is a disaster, it will continue to be a disaster for years to come.
It is, and it's simply not good enough. The government need to do more. I'm a parent of teenage kids.
Yeah, you're also representing a government party.
I'm at a loss of how they will get a house in a couple of years' time.
Did that make you any way reluctant to represent Fianna Fáil in this election?
Well, the president can't build houses.
But when Fianna Fáil came to you and said, we want you to represent Fianna Fáil in this campaign,
what the president can do,
and you said, did you not say to them, sorry, your party has been an abject failure on housing. How could I represent you?
The president can keep highlighting the issues of society, and the issue of housing will be the defining issue of our leaders in government that we elected, not the president. The president can keep a spotlight on it, and that's what I will do in my presidency, is keeping...
with all due respect, everybody says we'll keep a spotlight on housing.
On this area.
Nobody needs a spotlight on housing. The government know that they're failing on housing. They can see it day in, day out.
And the role of the presidency can keep that pressure on the government in behalf of the Irish people to solve this issue. It is the defining moment, as I said, of
so
this...
You had no reluctance whatsoever in representing Fianna Fáil, despite, as you say, the abject failure of their housing policy and the disaster that has been for this country.
The reason I agreed to run for Fianna Fáil and advocate my candidacy is because we have a shared vision in terms of the positive role that the President can play for Ireland. And particularly, as we've discussed this evening, in these times of division, I believe, with my skill set and what I've demonstrated in my career to date, that I can be a unifying force for the people of Ireland.
Catherine, do you accept that there is a complex problem and that there are therefore complex solutions? And do you accept actually what Micheál Martin said earlier this week or over the weekend, which is that this isn't an Irish problem, we have to think of this as a European problem? This is a problem in every country in Europe.
Well, I spent 17 years of my life at a city council level, and we built houses. And we stopped building in 2009. Not a single public house was built by Galway City Council, and very few by the County Council from 2009 onwards. The problem has arisen because we utterly based our solutions on the market, on a neoliberal ideology. And when that failed, we brought in various schemes to back up the market. We utterly failed to build public housing on public land, which is part of the solution. Now we have a myriad of schemes, which is like a jigsaw of pieces without an overall picture. It has become complex because of the various schemes, but it's actually quite simple in a sense that we need, first of all, to realise that it's a fundamental human right to have a home. Secondly, we need to look at what the Housing Commission said. The government set up a Housing Commission, and amongst many recommendations, one of their conclusions before the recommendations was that we need a radical reset of housing policy. And then they went on to give the recommendations, which have been utterly ignored by the government. And so we go from crisis to crisis, and we have the obscenity where over 16,000 people are homeless, and within that number we have 5,000. And it is simply unacceptable. The Housing Commission was the point where any sensible government would have changed policy. They had the reason, they had the recommendations, they set up the commission. That commission consulted with everybody, from the property people, from the landlords, to the people who are deeply affected, and all the organisations. And they've been utterly ignored. We cannot call ourselves a republic with that number of people in homeless accommodation and with absolutely very little security of tenure. It is impossible for people to deal with that.
Heather, was it a failure of government policy? Was it insensible then, the implication from Catherine, not to follow all of their recommendations?
Catherine said it was simple. It's not simple. It's anything but simple. If it was simple to solve the housing problem, it would have been solved. It's a complex problem, and Catherine's talking about the Housing Commission, and they come forward with their suggestions. Everybody that has worked on this problem has tried to do their best, and they have listened to many different experts. But the problem with housing is supply, supply, supply. We need to increase the number of houses that we are building, and then you see places where there have been objections to housing, and that's wrong too. Like, there's people who choose to first of all, on one hand, they're giving out that there's not enough houses, and then you look a bit further down the road, you discover they have objected to local development in their area. So we need more houses. That's the bottom line, and we have to. And there's new ways of building, new ways in construction, more efficient ways to do it. There's 3D printing now of houses, and there's new ways that we need to embrace, and we need to upskill, and we need to do that quickly so we get more houses.
So not so much a case as Catherine contends that the market has failed, rather the market's the solution to this.
No, the government is spending billions on providing social housing, but it's the private sector that's building all of these houses, and it's getting the skill set to build the houses. That's the big issue here. We can't get enough people to build houses, and it's not just a problem in Ireland. Unfortunately, it's a problem across Europe as well.
That is the issue, Catherine, isn't it? That you and other members of the opposition face when you criticise government policy is that we have no unemployed builders.
You see, I came into the Dáil in 2016, and I and my colleagues asked the government to recognise there was a crisis. There was a crisis in 2016.
Yeah.
It's now 2025. We denuded our local authorities of staff. We denuded them of resources, and we said the market.
Yeah, but if you take builders from the private sector and get them working for the local authority, they're still only turning out the same number of houses. It's still the same number of builders, we don't have any unemployed builders.
We cannot leave an analysis where we just need more houses as the solution. We have to look at what has happened, and we prevented local authorities from building housing because we put the emphasis on the market, and we also took building houses off as something that should have been done at a time where it was much cheaper. And so the problem has increased and increased in intensity and numbers, and it's an absolute indictment of successive governments that we're at the place where we're at.
And we have a growing population. We have to consider that as well. Our population is growing, so there's a greater demand for houses.
Jim, I mean, if you win the election, you'll have a house for the next 7 years, at least either of you. I want to ask about how long you plan to spend in that house, but if you win, would you take the full salary?
I'll take whatever remuneration is applicable to that particular. If I was honoured enough to be elected President of Ireland.
Heather, would you take the full salary?
I will do the same as what President Michael D. Higgins has done. He was a former government minister, and I will give back my ministerial pension.
Catherine, would you take the full salary?
I'm on record for saying I'll take the salary and then sit down and redirect a substantial portion of that for different projects.
Would you hope, if you were successful, to run for a second term?
All my effort is going into a full term. The Constitution provides for a second term. I can only see myself serving a one term, but the Constitution allows for a second term, and all my energy is going in to be elected as the 10th President of Ireland.
Heather,
well, if
2 terms?
If people are good enough to elect me, I'm happy with 1 term.
Jim?
My focus is on an energetic, positive presidency out amongst the communities in every county. For me, it's 7 years.
OK, 1 term. So Micheál Martin said today that there's not going to be a border poll for at least 10 years. How can you be a United Ireland candidate if the policy of Fianna Fáil is that we're not going to have it, we're not going to work towards it for at least 10 years, and you say you're only going to serve for 7?
Yeah, well, I'm a Republican. I believe in the Constitution. I believe what the Constitution speaks about a united Ireland, and I'm very proud of that. But I'm also conscious of the great work that's been done since the Good Friday Agreement of 1998.
This is an issue for your successor more than you. Would you accept that?
And in my presidency, I will work to build on the former presidents, the great work they have done, and reconciliation across the island of Ireland.
So you lay the groundwork for the person who comes after you?
For me, it's unification of people first and foremost. That's the priority that I will bring to the government. Like, I was one of the first teams to play Gaelic football in Ravenhill. My professional life brings me up to the north of Ireland on a regular basis. So I understand the concerns of both sides of the community, and I will work on a regular and frequent basis to build relationships with both sides of the community for the common good and an island that we share together.
Catherine, what do you say to those who have accused you of kind of adopting United Ireland rhetoric as a cloak of convenience, that it's not something that you talked about a lot in the Dáil when you were in there, that it's not something you ask questions about a lot, but you talk about it now when you want to be president?
First of all, Article 3 of the Constitution sets out that it's the firm will of the Irish people to have a united Ireland. And in relation to what you're asking me, back in 2020 I spoke in the Dáil on a united Ireland. I've spoken on it on other occasions. And parallel with that, I've gone up to the North repeatedly in a personal capacity and then as chair of the Irish Committee. And I have met communities across the divide, and I have.
But so is Heather, and so is Jim. For Sinn Féin are supporting you. For Sinn Féin voters, some of them will have a united Ireland top of their agenda. It's the most important issue for them going to the polls. And you say you'll represent them, but so will Heather, so will Jim. It doesn't sound like you're saying anything different to them when it comes to a united Ireland.
Different than who, sir?
Than your fellow candidates.
Absolutely. Article 3 of the Constitution sets out the constitutional requirements, and I'll certainly be a voice for that. Okay. I would hope
so there's no difference between your position, Heather Humphreys' position, Jim Gavin's position.
I would hope that there would be a united Ireland in my term as president. Mm-hmm. In terms of a border poll...
Not really answering the question with all due respect now.
I'm doing my best. In terms of a border poll, and in terms of that, it's up to the different entities, the three entities that will be involved. It's very much political. But I will certainly use my voice, as I've done, in going up to Northern Ireland and meeting different communities to progress that.
Heather, I think we've all moved past this idea whereby a united Ireland would be the 26 counties but bigger, kind of annexation. It's a new island we talk about, a united island and communities coming together. In that regard, would you be happy for us to consider changing things that we consider fundamental to our identity at the moment? For example, the flag, one of the first things we talked about this evening, the national anthem. Should there as well, for example, be a quota of seats set aside in some new parliament, whether we call it the Dáil or something else, for representatives from the unionist community?
Yeah, well, I think it's important that we strive towards a united Ireland. I believe in a united Ireland. I am a proud Ulster woman, and as I said, I'm a proud Republican in the same way that the United Irishmen of 1798 were, and indeed Henry John McCracken. So we need to work towards uniting people first, and that's the most important thing. As John Hume said, you must unite people. You must build those bridges. You must break down those barriers. And I want to build on the work that Mary McAleese did. She did wonderful work in bringing both communities together in Northern Ireland, whether it's nationalist or whether it's unionist. I will work with the flag.
New flag?
Well, the flag is a symbol of unity, and I honestly believe,
you, but I mean, people in the unionist community, it's a symbol of nationalism.
Yeah, but I think, to be fair to the flag, it clearly outlines the orange of unionism and the green of republicanism, and that's of nationalism, and that is so important, with peace and with white in the middle.
Okay, but keep the flag. A new anthem?
Yeah, if you're going to reach out, there's going to always have to be compromises. If you're finding a new solution, there will be compromises. But that will be up to the government. It'll be up to the government to work on a cross-border basis. As I sat on the North-South Ministerial Council, you can have those conversations. I have the experience of being in Northern Ireland so many times, whether it was through commemorations or whether it was attending events. I was the first one to bring Arlene Foster across the border to an Ulster final. I invited her over. She was out of her comfort zone. I was glad to bring her and show.
You should have brought her to a special junior hurling match. She'd have been really out of her comfort zone.
We need to extend the hand of friendship, and we need to show that this is a welcoming country.
New anthem, should they be on the table?
My career, my life to date has been all about managing change, big projects. For me, the new Ireland is a matter for the governments. From the presidential perspective, it's about that reconciliation piece.
That's a kick to touch.
No, it's not, because if I may finish, the point I'm going to make is that who knows what the new Ireland looks like. The most important thing is that we have peace, we have reconciliation on our shared Ireland.
We started with a 1 minute pitch. We'll finish with a 30-second reminder. Jim, why should people vote for you?
Kieran, I believe in our country. I believe in the service to the state. And I believe in service to the people of Ireland. I believe passionately about the positive role that the presidency can play. And in my career, everything that I have done, I have shown up. And as president, I will show up. I will show up locally, nationally, internationally. And what we just talked this evening about is growing division. And as president, I will be a unifying force to bring people together, and that will be my commitment to the people of Ireland.
Heather.
I love this country. This country has made me what I am. This country has given me all that I have. I want to reach out the hand of friendship. I want to try and bring unity to communities. I want to support communities. I want to support the volunteers, and I want young people to grow up in this country to realise that they can know that they can realise their full potential. This is a country of opportunity. Of course, there will always be challenges. So I'm committed to serving the people and to speaking out for the people and to listening to the people and being their voice.
Kieran, as a president, I will listen, reflect and engage with people at every opportunity. And I will represent this country with pride, with courage and integrity. I will reflect the values that I believe are at the core of our identity and which have given us such a unique, privileged voice in the world. I will reach out to communities and I will seek to unite rather than divide. Mar Ockelsker by Falche I Chali Rev Gathina Sonoras.
Catherine Connolly, Heather Humphreys, Jim Gavin, thank you all very, very much. That's it from us. Polling day is Friday, October 24th. In between now and then, I'm back on the radio and News Talk tomorrow at 4. This programme available as a podcast on all major platforms, and we're on social media tonight, VMTV. From all the late team here, good night and take care.